From the moment we step into the adult world, there is this relentless, almost invisible curriculum we are all supposed to master.
Oh, absolutely.
It is the curriculum of playing big. Like you are supposed to walk into the boardroom and just own the room.
Right. Maximize your network, optimize your time.
Exactly. You have to project this aura of absolute, unwavering competence all the time. It is like you are constantly inflating yourself, puffing out your chest, raising your voice, expanding your footprint.
Yeah, just to meet the baseline expectations of modern life.
You basically become a human hot air balloon.
Hot air balloon is such a good way to put it. And, I mean, keeping that balloon inflated takes an incredible amount of expensive fuel.
So much fuel.
It is the inflation of the ego, the inflation of our responsibilities, and, frankly, the inflation of our physical and mental presence.
Right?
We are essentially taught that if we aren't taking up maximum space, if we aren't dominating our environment, we are somehow losing.
Which is just exhausting.
It really is an exhausting way to live, constantly feeding the burner just to stay aloft.
Exhausting is the perfect word for it. But what if the ultimate life hack to beat that sheer fatigue isn't finding better fuel for the balloon? What if it is intentionally pulling the cord and making yourself as small as possible?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, okay, let's unpack this. We're always told to take up space and be the biggest presence in the room, but this text argues the exact opposite. We are doing a deep dive today into a radical, contrary idea. The profound, hidden power of embracing smallness as a mental reset.
I love this. But I think before we go down that path, we have to unpack the heavy baggage attached to the word smallness.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because for most people, feeling small is inherently negative. It implies being less than.
Right, like being diminished.
Exactly. It is usually rooted in trauma or social defeat, or just that horrible feeling of disappearing because someone in the room made you feel like you were too much or not enough.
Yes, the shoved in a locker kind of small. The shrinking you do when you are intimidated. That is forced smallness. When you are squeezed into a tiny, suffocating box against your will, you panic. Your world is restricted.
But the smallness we are looking at in this deep dive is completely different.
Totally different. It is soft, it is chosen, it is gentle.
Yeah.
Think about the difference between being trapped in a closet versus choosing to squint your eye and look through a microscope.
Oh, that is a great analogy.
Your physical footprint shrinks, sure, but your world actually explodes with detail and curiosity.
The microscope analogy is spot on because it shifts the motivation from fear to fascination. What is fascinating here is what happens when you strip away the adult burden of constantly justifying your existence.
Right.
The text gives this great image. Imagine a little girl crouching down in the tall grass. In that posture, the whole world suddenly becomes just the 12 inches of dirt right in front of her hands.
Her entire universe shrinks to just that spot.
Exactly. And she finds a pebble. Now, a pebble isn't just a rock to her. It is shiny. It is mysterious. It might be important for reasons no one else understands.
And that is enough.
That is entirely enough.
I mean, I hear that, and it sounds beautiful, but honestly, if I walk into a chaotic boardroom or a competitive job market and decide to just be a pebble, I am going to get eaten alive.
Well, yeah.
Doesn't this kind of romanticize powerlessness in a world that demands we prove our value every single day?
That is a fair point.
Yeah.
It would absolutely be romanticizing powerlessness if the goal was to stay crouched in the grass forever.
Right.
But this is about a deliberate, temporary divestment from the economy of attention and productivity. When you are operating in that playing big mindset you mentioned earlier, everything you do has to have utility.
Right. It needs an ROI, a return on investment.
Exactly. If you spend an hour reading a book, it needs to be a book that makes you a better manager.
Or if you go for a walk, it needs to hit your target heart rate.
Every single action has a job to do. But in this state of chosen smallness, nothing has to prove why it matters.
Oh, that sounds like a relief.
It is a massive relief. Think about the psychological weight that lifts off your shoulders when you give yourself permission to value things intrinsically rather than instrumentally.
Like valuing something just because it exists.
Yes. You focus on a specific shadow cast on the wall simply because it catches your eye, not because it is going to help your career.
Not because it looks good on an Instagram feed.
Exactly. Just because it is there, you entirely remove the suffocating pressure of performance.
So we are dropping the sandbags off the hot air balloon. We are letting go of the need for everything to have a metric attached to it.
Yep.
But if we can actually manage that mental shift from having to justify everything to just observing what does this all mean for how we physically carry ourselves,
That is the best part.
because you cannot separate the brain's anxiety from the body's tension, right?
You really can't.
Mhm.
And this is where the concept moves from a nice philosophy to an actual physiological intervention.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, when you mentally reframe smallness from a state of defeat to a state of curiosity, it actually changes your physical presence.
Mm.
You stop moving like you are in charge of the world, and you start moving like you are just visiting it.
Oh, I love that. The difference between the boss and the visitor.
Exactly.
I was thinking about the bodily tension we carry in those different roles. Like when you walk into a tense meeting as the person in charge, you are responsible for the structural integrity of the room.
You are holding it all together.
Right. Your spine is rigid, your jaw is probably a little tight, your gaze is darting around, constantly scanning for threats or issues to solve. You are bracing against reality.
That is such a vivid picture.
Now contrast that with walking into an ancient, towering redwood forest as a guest.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the biomechanics of those two states are entirely opposed.
Hmm.
In the forest, you aren't managing the trees.
No.
You aren't responsible for the photosynthesis. You were just experiencing it.
Exactly. And your posture changes completely. You become soft, observant, quiet.
Your body just lets go.
Yeah. When you adopt this physical smallness, the environment feels bigger and older in this magical way. Like a tree feels tall in a way that makes you tilt your head back and expose your neck.
Which is a very vulnerable posture.
Yes. The ground feels close, like it is inviting you to sit. Even the air feels like something you can lean into instead of push through. I love that imagery from the text. Leaning into the air instead of fighting it.
What is actually happening there is a profound downregulation of your nervous system.
Really?
Yeah. In our modern default state,
Mm.
we are engaged in a constant low-grade physical resistance. We brace against the
You
commute.
brace against the inbox.
Exactly. We brace against the noise of the city. We subconsciously tighten our core and elevate our shoulders because we feel like we are the load-bearing pillars of our own reality.
If we let go, the sky falls.
We are playing Atlas, holding up the globe. But when you let go of the need to manage everything, when you allow the world to be bigger than you and older than you,
Yeah.
you are sending a massive biological signal of safety through your vagus nerve.
Wait, really? Just by shifting that mindset?
Yes, your brain realizes, oh, I don't have to hold it all together. The forest is standing up on its own.
Wow.
So your shoulders drop, your facial muscles unclench, your breath gets quieter and deeper, not out of fear, like a prey animal trying to hide, but because the environment suddenly feels worth being gentle with.
You get to step down from being the load-bearing pillar and just be a piece of the scenery.
Exactly.
The air is let out of the balloon and you drift down to the grass. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
And honestly, where I have to throw a flag on the play for a second. We are generally conditioned to believe that feeling small in a massive, sprawling universe is terrifying.
Usually is.
Right. It's the definition of existential dread. Looking up at the night sky and realizing you are a microscopic speck is supposed to make you feel insignificant and vulnerable.
Totally.
So why does this author insist that being small inside a big world actually feels safer instead of worse? Because the text claims it feels safer, like being held, but without anyone actually holding you. How does shrinking equate to safety?
It is a brilliant paradox, honestly.
Yeah.
And it requires us to look at the illusion of control. We falsely assume that control equals safety.
Okay, tracking with you.
If I am the biggest entity in the room, if I am micromanaging every variable in my life, I am safe because I dictate the terms.
Right, if I have my hands on the steering wheel, we won't crash.
But the reality is that maintaining absolute control over a chaotic, unpredictable world is biologically impossible.
Yeah, that is a losing battle.
It requires an exhausting, hypervigilant state that burns us out. It is a terrifying, precarious illusion.
So the safety doesn't come from being in control.
No, a safety you feel when you embrace chosen smallness comes from the profound relief of stepping off that impossible pedestal.
Wow.
It is the realization that the world is structurally sound without your constant intervention. You are supported by the sheer, magnificent indifference of the universe.
The sheer magnificent indifference of the universe.
Oh, man. It doesn't need your management to keep spinning, which means you are finally free to just be held by its gravity.
That is such a comforting reframe. To find comfort in the fact that the universe doesn't need me to optimize it.
Exactly.
When you drop that heavy cloak of being the manager, you shift into a totally different brain state, don't you?
You do. You transition away from the brain's task-positive network, which is all about solving problems, predicting the future, and achieving goals.
The ROI network.
Right. And you slip into the default mode network, which allows for mind-wandering, reflection, and presence. And when that happens, a massive shift in perception occurs regarding scale and time.
Let's talk about time, because that is the most scarce resource we have when we are playing big.
Oh, absolutely.
Usually time is an adversary. It is this shrinking pie that we have to fight for, slicing it into 15-minute calendar blocks.
It is always running out.
Right. But when you let yourself be this kind of small, the world doesn't get smaller with you. It gets bigger, softer, fuller, and time stretches out.
This raises an important question about our relationship with time. Notice that in this state, time isn't slow in a frustrating way.
Right.
It isn't slow like waiting in line at the DMV, where you are agonizing over every passing second because you have somewhere more important to be.
No, it is slow. Like there is enough of it. You don't have to rush past anything because there is no destination to reach.
Exactly.
We always feel like there isn't enough time because we are trying to be bigger than our environment. We're trying to dominate our day and extract maximum value from every second.
Yep, the task-positive network in overdrive.
But when we shrink down and stop demanding that time yield to our productivity, time actually expands to accommodate us.
And that abundance of time allows for a tiny spark in the chest, a soft realization where things are simply more beautiful than you expected them to be.
Because you finally have a second to look at them.
Right. When you aren't rushing, you actually see the texture of the tree bark. You notice the way the light hits the dust motes in the air?
Okay, conceptually, I am completely sold. The paradoxes of time, the vagus nerve dropping our shoulders, abandoning the ROI of everyday life. It all sounds incredible.
It really is.
But practically speaking, how do we actually find this feeling in our everyday, chaotic lives?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, if a listener is playing this while sitting in gridlock traffic, or maybe hiding in a bathroom stall to escape a stressful family gathering, how do they actually enact this?
Well, the beauty of this approach is its microscopic pragmatism.
Microscopic pragmatism. I like that.
It doesn't require a month-long silent retreat in the mountains. The text offers very clear, actionable physical instructions. You don't have to pretend to be anything. You just have to get closer. Literally.
Okay, how so?
One of the primary directives is to sit on the floor instead of standing.
Sit on the floor. I love the instruction to sit on the floor.
It is surprisingly effective.
It feels like a manual override for a frozen, stressed-out brain.
When you are stressed, your energy is entirely trapped up in your head.
Oh, totally. Your chest is tight, you are pacing around the kitchen island, you are looking down at everything. But by physically lowering your center of gravity, getting down on the rug, sitting on the grass, sitting on the tile floor of your kitchen, you are forcing a mental reboot through a biological action.
Yes. It fundamentally alters your literal perspective, which forces a shift in your psychological perspective.
Right.
You are seeing the world from an angle that adults rarely experience unless they are picking up something they dropped.
Though I have to admit, if I randomly sit on the floor in my office, my coworkers are definitely going to call HR.
Probably.
And if I sit on the floor at home, my dog immediately assumes it is playtime and assaults me with a slimy tennis ball.
Right, right.
So it takes a certain level of deliberate weirdness to just sit on the floor and do nothing. What would it take for you to literally sit on the floor today?
It takes a lot of deliberate weirdness.
Right.
And that deliberate weirdness is exactly what breaks the cycle of the playing big curriculum.
That is a great point.
Let your dog bring the tennis ball. Let your hands touch something simple. Look at a mundane object for longer than feels normal until it changes.
Go slower.
Yeah, move slower, like you aren't trying to get anywhere. Let something small be enough.
You are bringing yourself down to the level of the tiny, unnoticed lives happening all around us.
Exactly.
Because the world is still doing what it has always been doing. Tiny things are happening everywhere, all the time. An ant carrying a crumb, a bead of condensation rolling down a glass.
It is all just happening.
Little lives, little movements, little pieces of beauty that do not ask to be noticed. They aren't performing for us.
And that is the crucial pivot the text makes at the end. The magic isn't just in observing those tiny things like you were watching a nature documentary.
Right.
It is an active choice to come down to their level. It requires a deliberate surrender of our elevated human-centric viewpoint.
We are so used to being the main character.
Always. Dominating the narrative, interpreting the world only by how it serves our plot line.
But when you sit on the floor and watch that ant, You are no longer the main character.
Well,
You are just a quiet, unassuming participant in a micro ecosystem. And the reward for that surrender is reciprocity.
the reciprocity is key.
Being small enough to see them and letting them see you back.
Letting them see you back, it is a shared quietness. You
Hmm.
become part of the background, part of the fabric. The pebble isn't a tool for you to use. It is a co-inhabitant of the space.
Wow.
It is a profound leveling of the playing field that strips away all the exhaustion of having to matter so much.
It really is the ultimate antidote to the hot air balloon.
It is.
So, where does this leave us? Let's do a quick recap. We have walked through this incredible journey of redefining smallness, not as a traumatic shrinking, but as a curious, gentle microscope.
Right, unlearning the forced smallness.
Exactly. We have looked at the biomechanics of dropping the manager posture and letting the vagus nerve signal safety to our brains.
Becoming a visitor.
Yes. We explored the paradox of how making ourselves physically small actually expands our perception of time and space, removing the existential dread of having to hold the universe together.
And finally, the actionable steps of getting low, looking closely, and letting a small thing be enough.
But life dictates that we cannot stay sitting on the floor forever.
Unfortunately, no.
The reality of modern existence is that eventually we do have to stand back up. The emails still have to be answered. The mortgage still has to be paid.
The chaotic boardrooms and the gridlock traffic are waiting for us.
We have to reinflate the balloon, at least partially, to navigate the curriculum of playing big. We can't be visitors in the forest permanently. Sometimes we have to go back to being the boss in the meeting.
We do.
So what is the lasting impact of this practice?
Well, think about the invisible muscle you are building when you deliberately pull the cord and lower yourself to the grass.
Okay.
If practicing this chosen smallness radically expands our perception of time and lowers our nervous system's defenses, it creates a baseline of profound safety.
Right.
It proves to our brains that the world does not require our constant agonizing management to survive.
Oh, so it builds an unseen resilience.
Exactly. When we routinely visit this small, grounded state, we are banking proof that the universe can hold us.
I love that. Banking proof.
So when we inevitably have to return to our biggest, most overwhelming adult problems, we handle them differently.
Because the stakes don't feel quite as apocalyptic.
Right, we aren't as fragile because we know deep down in our nervous system that we can always choose to step off the pedestal.
We can always choose to be a visitor again.
Which leaves us with this provocative thought to mull over. Does routinely practicing smallness actually make us infinitely better at being big?
Man, that is the ultimate takeaway to chew on. Practicing smallness to become better at being big.
It is quite the reframe.
So the next time you find yourself standing in the doorway of a room, taking a deep breath, preparing to puff up your chest and project that aura of absolute competence to meet the demands of the adult world,
Remember, you have a choice.
remember that you also possess the power to do the exact opposite. You have the power to let the hot air out of the balloon, crouch down in the grass, find the pebble, and just let the world be wonderfully, indifferently big around you.